What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. I'm Simon here with my co-hosts Josh, John, Luke, and Jay. Too many J names here to break down Sunday football slate for you from a fantasy perspective and do a little preview of Sunday night football. A reminder to everyone watching, we are here on the FanDuel YouTube and Twitch channel. So if you're watching, that means you're already on one of those pages. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you are on Twitch, hit that follow button. There's a whole team of awesome content creators on the FanDuel platform helping you win money and win your fantasy league. So make sure you follow them everywhere. Go check out their TikTok. They got some awesome content creators over on the TikTok too.
Austin Henry, we just had him on Friday.
The TikTok?
On the TikTok.
On the
TikTok. Yeah, the
It's
Facebook, the TikTok.
Yeah, I think it was founded by Ohio State alumni, so they put the "the" in front of it to make sure everyone knew how important it was.
Well, I didn't think it was that overrated, but
sorry to any Ohio State fans, but not that sorry. If you're in here. Speaking of Ohio State fans, we got Jay Wall in here. What's up, Jay Wall? Welcome in. And Joey's handing out money, so if you need $5, looks like Joey's got you.
Oh, man.
I'm guessing this is Chosen Rose in here. Says hello. What's up? Looks like a new handle though.
Hey. New handle. Who dis?
New handle. Who dis? Jay Wall says I'm crying at the moment because the Eagles lost.
You should probably.
Man, Jay Wall, I believe I heard you say during the game the Eagles are the best team in the NFL.
He definitely said that.
Tough loss for the best team. What's up, Maria? Welcome in. She is recap ready to kick John Luke's ass in Scott Fishbowl, if I'm not
Why
mistaken.
you got to bring that up?
Whammy.
Nobody said nothing about that.
I did not know that, but I am very happy that's the case.
And we got Kevin here saying bird up. What's up, Kev?
What up, Kev?
OG. He's been there from the beginning. Just an extra special shout out for Kev this week. We love you, man. And we got Jabron here previewing one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Who knew Dak, Zeke, and the Dallas defensive friends would lay an egg today? Absolutely killed them. Me too, man.
He says Urban has arrived.
They're going to the Super Bowl. Urban has arrived.
Yep, Super Bowl bound Jags.
Yo, if the Jaguars can win all these games by only scoring 9 points, then you might be right. You might be right.
Josh, I like that. If the Jags win the rest of their games, they will win the Super Bowl probably. They just have to win the rest of them, every single one.
Maria, that's what you come here for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love you too, Maria. Love you too. Also, we got something new in here in case anyone wanted to know. The Jazz are leading the Magic 52-50 at the end of the second quarter for everyone who's watching the NBA sports. Guys, the first thing we're going to do today is we are going to jump into the Sunday night preview. We've got the Tennessee Titans going up against the Los Angeles Rams. And what I wanted to start with is I wanted each of us to give our prediction for this game. So, Jay, we're going to start with you. Final score, who's the winner of the Tennessee Titans Los Angeles Rams game tonight?
I hate to say it because I have a lot of shares of A.J. Brown, but I think the Rams are going to destroy the Titans. I think they're going to struggle without Derrick Henry. If I'm giving a final score, I'm going to go 34-17 Rams.
34-17 Rams from Jay. Josh, what about you?
I'm close to you, Jay. I think it will be a little bit closer than you think, but yeah, I'm definitely taking the Rams here. I'll say 36 to 24.
36-24. So we got some high scoring game predictions so far. JL, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Rams, but I think Titans are going to cover the spread. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with
I had to think about it there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I'm going to go with 35-30.
Okay,
and we're all projecting a high scoring game here. Yeah.
Watch it be like 10-7.
Titans win. I'm thrown off a little bit by the Titans because I feel like they're one of the teams that have been confusing this year with some of their outcomes, but I think the Rams are going to come out on top. This is a Super Bowl contending team in the Los Angeles Rams. I'll say it's
7.5 point favorites, by the way.
I'll say it's a little bit closer and a little bit lower scoring. I'll go with 24-17 Rams. Rams coming out on top 24-17. So all of us picked the Rams, which means the Titans are probably going to end up winning this game. And Josh, I know there's a player on the Titans that you are quite excited about this week with the news about Derrick Henry going down. I just want you to tell us a little bit about what gives you the confidence in Jeremy McNichols this week.
Oh, I am very confident Jeremy McNichols. I still think he's going to be a top 20 PPR running back this week. I just expect the Titans to use him. He's going to be involved in the passing game. They're going to have to pass more than they have in the past.
Yeah.
But I don't think Adrian Peterson is the answer. He's going to get carries. Don't get me wrong, but Jeremy McNichols is going to be involved in a lot of different facets of the game, including running the ball. I could see him get more carries than Adrian Peterson. And if that's the case, McNichols is going to have a good game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Josh. I am on the Jeremy McNichols side if I have to start one of those two bags. JL or Jay, do either of you have interest in Adrian Peterson over Jeremy McNichols this week in fantasy?
No,
not at all. I think Josh laid out perfect.
Let's go, Jeremy McNichols.
And then on the other side of the ball, I know there's a player I wanted to highlight. He was one of my favorite starts this week. It is a bit of a boomer bust kind of play, but Van Jefferson for the Los Angeles Rams has been getting more and more involved in this offense. He's approaching kind of the same territory as Robert Woods whenever it comes to targets the past couple games. I think this is a Van Jefferson week. I think he breaks a long touchdown. We're going to see a deep target connect with him. I think he's a great boomer bust kind of play from this game and this Rams offense. I love Van Jefferson this week.
Love it, Simon. Throw him in those lineups. Great DFS play in my mind.
Anything else from this game, guys, that you want to highlight before we move on to the New England versus Carolina game?
Let's get New England Carolina game.
You said it right.
I practiced so much today to not say New England. I'm not even kidding. I
miss it. I honestly miss it a little bit, but
New England.
The show is young.
New England.
Yeah, it's going to come out before the end of the game. Yeah, before the end of the game, we'll get at least one New England. But this is the first game we're going to be talking about today. The New England versus Carolina Panthers. New England coming out on top 24-6. Also, hi, Carly.
That's my niece, Carly. Hey, Carly. Thanks for tuning in.
Carly?
What up, Carly?
Bradenton said this week was so weird. Lots of duds. So many duds. Just a bizarre week for fantasy. Yep. The 1 p.m. slate was broken. I don't know if it was the time change or what was going on, but there was something weird going on at 1 p.m. that made all these games just a little funky.
At least the Ravens came out on top.
Yeah, so with the New England versus the Carolina Panthers game, everybody was excited. Christian McCaffrey came back this week, and he did what Christian McCaffrey does. Over 100 combined yards, 52 rushing yards, 4 catches, 54 reception yards. Sam Darnold, the honeymoon is over. He was absolutely abysmal. 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, only 172 passing yards, which led to DJ Moore not being very good either. He actually he got banged up. I don't know if he came back into the game, but it was not pretty. So we'll start there. JL, I know here recently you've talked about DJ Moore as a buy low. Are you still saying that DJ Moore is a buy low? And is there anybody other than Christian McCaffrey that you are comfortable starting for the Panthers?
I mean, we're still seeing DJ Moore get the bulk of the targets here. He got, 7 targets today. That was the highest on this team, apart from Christian McCaffrey coming back. But as far as wide receivers goes, highest on the team. But I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, he's still limited by his offense, because even though he has one of the highest target shares in the entire league amongst all wide receivers, his offense is just not moving. So the quality of those targets just isn't quite there.
I mean, look at Sam Darnold's stats. That sums it up for you. You're not going to have a lot of wide receiver production when Sam Darnold's throwing for 172 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions.
Yeah, 3 interceptions.
Do you guys think this is the standard we should expect from Sam Darnold going forward, though? He has supported DJ Moore finding fantasy success in other games this season. I know it's been rough sledding for him recently, but is this the standard with which you're expecting Sam Darnold to play rest of season, or do you think there's better games ahead? Is this offense very matchup dependent, or is this just a low-powered offense?
I mean, it's certainly I think the answer is going to be a little bit of all of that, right? It's like his offensive line has been poor the whole season. That hasn't changed.
The center got hurt today as well, so
it's not any better yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I don't think Sam Darnold is one of those quarterbacks that can really transcend that poor O-line play He can't really put this team on his back. I thought he might be able to coming into the season. He looked pretty good. I thought he might be able to make stuff work, but he's kind of fallen off. He did not look good today.
Yeah, I think JL's right. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. That may be the boring answer, but I don't think it's going to be these extremes. I think DJ Moore is somebody who you're plugging in your lineup every week. You're really only excited to play him when it's good matchups. And Christian McCaffrey, he proved if he's on the field, even with limited snaps, he's a guy that you're starting.
In my mind, DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey are must starts every week going forward still. But like you said, Jay, I don't want to play anyone else on this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking at the New England side, there really wasn't a whole lot notable on the offense. Mac Jones did not look that great. 139 yards, a touchdown, interception, and a fumble lost. He did not look very good. Josh, your boy Damian Harris did get the touchdown, but not a whole lot else. 30 yards on the ground. He did get a target, but the Rhino, as our dear friend Sheehan from Sleeper Wire likes to call him, Ramondre Stevenson had a solid game. Yes. 10 carries, 62 yards. He did get 2 catches for 44 yards. Josh, would you say that they are going to let the Rhino run wild, or is this just a one-off thing? Or
No, so Damian Harris, both Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson got a little banged up in this game. Going forward, Damian Harris is the lead back for the Patriots. I'm not concerned about that, but it does give me a little bit of confidence in Stevenson if something were to happen to Damian Harris. If he was not going to be in the lineup for whatever reason, I do believe Ramondre Stevenson would be the leading ball carrier for the Patriots, and he would be successful. He looks good out there. So I don't think this is something where I'm telling you to go pick him up. You need to have him in your lineup or anything like that. Damian Harris is the lead back while he's healthy still. And he looks good when he gets the ball too. So
especially
whatever running
with bye weeks, I'll ask both you guys this question. Are you comfortable starting Ramondre Stevenson as a flex?
Not when Damian Harris is healthy.
Okay. Yeah. And the wide receivers really didn't do much. Hunter Henry did catch a touchdown, for the tight end position, but that's really about it. The way Mac Jones looked, there really just was not a whole lot to go around. The running backs really got some pretty solid work. Brandon Bolden got some catches. Ramondre Stevenson got some catches. So it's offensively, this was a very ugly game. Not a whole lot of fantasy production from anybody.
Unless you started the New England defense, you weren't thrilled with any of the performances. It seemed like every other player either met expectations. Know what I mean? Ramondre Stevenson, you would have been perfectly happy starting him. Christian McCaffrey, not thrilled, but perfectly fine starting him. But outside of that, just disappointment across the board. Disappointment. Mac Jones, what are you doing? Guys, anything else? Anything else on this game before we move on to the Buffalo Bills versus Jacksonville Jaguars?
No, I think we got it. No.
The game of the day. As everyone expected, the Jacksonville Jaguars came out with a win, beating the Bills 9-6. 9-6 in this game, just like we all thought. Urban Meyer's welcome party.
Guys, the Bills were favored at 15.5 points.
15.5 points. My God.
15.5 points.
That is wild.
You barely scored that much total. No, you didn't. Wait, what am I talking about? There was only 15 points.
What happened in this game? I mean, like, why did Josh Allen, like, what was going on with Josh Allen? I know Zach Moss, he suffered a concussion throughout the game, so I know Devin Singletary took over. We had some decent fantasy production out of these wide receivers. Simon, what do you think about Josh Allen's performance this week?
It was bad. I don't know what else to say about it besides it was bad. We know he's a good quarterback, right? We know he can put together decent games, and he's done it against good defenses. It's not like he hasn't faced players like defensive Josh Allen before. You know what I mean? First of all, they loved that storyline. The number of times they said Josh Allen was a little bit too high. But I'm not worried about Josh Allen going forward. This was a horrible game. This doesn't change anything about his fantasy outlook. He's still a top 3 quarterback in fantasy rest of season. It's just an awful game. These are games that happen from time to time. I really don't know too much else what caused this like steep decline in one game.
Yeah,
I'd say it's the turnovers. I mean, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble by Josh Allen. It's
enough to kill some momentum.
And he didn't score any touchdowns. That's why no one had any blow up games whatsoever. There was no touchdowns in this game, so
right. Right.
I don't know if there's a lot to take away from this. This is not the norm going forward. The Buffalo offense is still a great offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, and we did see, there was some goodness still in this game. Stephon Diggs came out 14 and a half points in in the PPR formats. He had 6 receptions on 8 targets and 85 yards. And then second receiving leader in this, actually all 3 receivers on this team, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders scored over 10 points this week. I know a lot of people were worried about Stephon Diggs. Jay, is this like signifying that we can expect Stephon Diggs to kind of return to form and return on that value that we all for where we all drafted him or his price?
Yeah, I still like Stephon Diggs long term. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if he's ever going to get back to the top 5 production that everybody was thinking that was going to be coming into the season, but it's possible. But just this.
Oh, you muted.
There we go. Accidentally unplugged my mic there. But yeah, I do think that he is going to be a wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. All 3 of these guys, I think, are wide receivers that you can play. Cole Beasley's been pretty solid. Emmanuel Sanders, has been off and on, but he's made some pretty impressive catches. I think that you can log in Stephon Diggs. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Stephon Diggs is locked in wide receiver 1, and then the other guys I think are solid wide receiver 3s with some bye week replacement value, flex plays, things like that.
Yeah, Josh, where do you think Stephon Diggs ends the season?
Like in terms of
wide receiver,
what wide receiver rank?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, what in a half point PPR, he's 23rd wide receiver.
Yeah,
right
around
now?
there, 22, 123.
I think people have to realize how close Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders are to Stephon Diggs in fantasy points. This offense is not locking on to Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen does not feel like he needs to make him the wide receiver that does everything. The ball sped around. It's much like the Cardinals offense. So going forward, I don't know if I can't put him in the top 10.
Yeah,
I just can't.
I think that's fair. Yeah, just to break down their targets here, there's not a massive gap like we see on some, like on the Packers, for instance. Stephon Diggs on the season is 24.1% of the targets. Cole Beasley 21.8% of the targets, and Emmanuel Sanders 16.6% over the season. Now that's shifted a little bit over the last 3 games. We've seen Cole Beasley get a ton more targets. He's shot up to 27.9% of the target share in just the last 3 games. So that could be affecting it. But I think Stephon Diggs is still the guy here on this team.
You still want to have him in your lineup every week.
Yeah.
I think he'll finish within the top 20, but he's not there yet. He's not there right now.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other side of this ball, outside of Dan Arnold, we really didn't have a single, there wasn't a single Jacksonville Jaguars player who scored more than 6.8 PPR fantasy points, which is just wild. Not even Trevor Lawrence. I know it's a tough matchup for wide receivers going against Buffalo. Simon, can we take anything away from this game on the Jacksonville side?
Dan Arnold's a streamable tight end, and outside of that, I don't know if there's much else to take from this. He's not an every week start, but in a good matchup, you can plug in Dan Arnold. He's involved in this matchup. Trevor Lawrence is still a rookie quarterback on a very bad offense that you don't want to trust in fantasy. Because of that, the receiving options are very difficult to trust as well. That tight end is just such a hellscape that Dan Arnold, with the volume that he's getting, is enough to plug in as a streamer.
Yeah, so Dan Arnold finished the game with 4 receptions on 7 targets and 60 yards. She gave him 10 PPR fantasy points. Jay, how do you feel about Dan Arnold going forward? Can you trust him, or is he just sort of emergency start streamer?
I'd say a little bit better than an emergency start, but he's not somebody that I would necessarily be comfortable with I think Simon said it perfectly. In the right matchup, I think he's somebody you can plug in. He's just another one of that group of guys that you can expect 3 to 5 catches, 50 to 60 yards, and if he catches a touchdown, you've got a great week. So I don't see a super high upside, but I think for the tight end position, he's got a decent floor.
Yeah, absolutely. We also had Carlos Hyde, who had 21 rushing attempts, which is, at the time I checked this, I actually haven't checked. James Conner might have beaten this at this point, but tied for the most rushing attempts in week 9 so far, along with Melvin Gordon and Devontae Booker.
And boy, did he do a lot with them.
Yeah, despite that, he really only netted 6.3 PPR fantasy points, 6.3 PPR fantasy points with 21 attempts. Josh, what do we do with are you comfortable starting Carlos Hyde with James Robinson out?
Look, we got to realize it's the Buffalo defense. We know this is a great defense. Running backs haven't done a ton against them so far this year. So honestly, going forward, if James Robinson's not in the lineup, I still actually feel comfortable putting Carlos Hyde out there. I feel very comfortable, actually. However, this goes to show, I think, how valuable James Robinson also is. He's just a much better running back than Carlos Hyde is at this point in their career. He can catch passes. So I think James Robinson is just a quality running back.
Yeah, I'm with you, Josh.
I will fully admit I was completely wrong on James Robinson. He was somebody who I faded hard in the offseason. I was wrong. It happens. And if you're able to buy low, let me look at his I just traded for him in one league. Mm-hmm. He's got a really enticing playoff schedule. Let me pull that up real quick.
And
faces
I know you can start Dan Arnold. He's streamable, but outside of that, James Robinson's the guy you want.
He's the guy here,
the only one really at this point.
Week 14, he's got a tough matchup against Tennessee, but week 15 he plays the Houston Texans, who give up the 10th most points to running backs, and the championship week, James Robinson plays the Jets, who give up the most fantasy points to running backs. So
yeehaw!
Somebody you might be targeting in trade talks.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, I think that's it for this game. We're going to move on to our next game, which is the Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. Atlanta Falcons versus the New Orleans Saints. Atlanta came out on top in this game, 27-25. And this game was a little bit odd from an injury perspective. These teams look a little different from a fantasy player perspective than what we started the season with. Calvin Ridley out for the Falcons and Jameis Winston out for the New Orleans Saints. We will start on the Atlanta side of this ball. And with Calvin Ridley out, he's left a little bit of a vacuum at receiver that I think we're still trying to figure out how that's going to be filled. So last week, it was Tajay Sharp who received the majority of the targets. This week, Russell Gage got 8 targets, 7 receptions for 64 yards. He was the highest targeted player on this team. So my first question going forward, before we get to the highest scoring receiver on Atlanta this week, we'll talk about him. Russell Gage or Tajay Sharp rest of season. Jay, between those two players, which one do you trust more?
Flip a coin. Honestly, I think all the wide receivers, I think you're just guessing. If I had to pick somebody, I'd probably lean Russell Gage just because we've seen him do it for stretches. You know, he played pretty well last year. But with Calvin Ridley not in the lineup, the only guy I trust in the passing game is Kyle Pitts. Other than that, I think it's going to be just like we've seen. You know, it's you're going to see somebody come out of nowhere every week. You're not going to be able to predict which one, and it's basically just the flip of a coin.
Yeah, and you brought up Kyle Pitts. He had 3 receptions. He had 3 receptions for 62 yards, but he was more involved than that stat line looks like. He had 7 targets in this game as well. This looks a lot like the first couple weeks we saw from Kyle Pitts while he was getting used to this offense, where he was being heavily targeted, but the fantasy points weren't just lining up. John Luke, do you have concerns about Kyle Pitts' rest of season with Calvin Ridley out? Because he's going to be the primary focus for the opposing defense now that he's I think it's safe to say he's the alpha receiver on this team as the tight end.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think Calvin Ridley being out does limit Kyle Pitts because they can hyper-focus him. But with that being said, I'm not fading him. I mean, he's in the last 3 games, 21.9% target share, which is the most on this team. Get this. All right, so we got Kyle Pitts, number 1, right? Last 3 games. Then number 2, third turn target share. Number 3, Russell Gage, 14.6%. Very interesting to me. I wasn't expecting that. And then Calvin Ridley, just from his one game that he played out of the last 3. And then Hayden Hurst and Tajay Sharp right after that. So Kyle Pitts is still the guy here. And I would rather, if you're going to make an argument for Hawkinson, right, all off season, I think you got to make that same argument for Pitts.
That's a great parallel, JL. People were saying, who the hell else are they going to throw the ball to with Hawkinson there? Atlanta, who the hell else are they going to throw the ball to? It's Russell Gage, Tajay Sharp, and Zaccheaus in that offense as well, which brings up my next question. So we had Olamide Zaccheaus go for 3 targets, 3 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 58 yards today. Josh, Is there anything to be taken from this performance? He wasn't very involved from like a target share percentage. He only had 3 targets, but he turned those into 3 catches and 2 touchdowns. Is this a player that has flex value or GPP value going forward where you could throw him in a tourney lineup, or is this just a fluky game?
I think it's a little fluky. Personally. I would rather have Russell Gage. Obviously, Cordell Patterson's the wide receiver / running back to own in this offense right now. But yeah, I think it's fluky. I do not trust his performance whatsoever.
Yep. Neither do I. Then in the rushing game for the Falcons, there was no rushing game for the Falcons. They did very, very little on the ground this game. What was it? Cordell Patterson with 10 yards, Mike Davis with 13 yards, both on 9 carries. It was abysmal, but Cordell Patterson did it again through the receiving work. 6 receptions for 126 receiving yards. That's he's an every week start. I know we've said it week in, week out now, but you cannot bench Cordell Patterson. No. Jay, you were not here last week. I can't remember if we played this game with Cordero, but we're going to play it with you right now.
Oh, no.
Cordero Patterson is a top blank running back rest of season. Throw everything we thought preseason out of the window. He is a top blank running back rest of season.
I got to say top 15, honestly. I mean, with the amount of volume he's getting in the passing game, you have to. I mean, nobody has done it as consistently as he has. I'm going to go top 15. I can't put him as an RB1 or wide receiver one, or whatever you want to call him. But yeah, I got to say top 15.
I was going to ask if Josh or JL, if either of you would answer that question in the RB1 category, a top 12 kind of guy rest of season.
No, not in the top 12. But he's right there.
JL looks like he wants to. JL looks like he wants to.
I'm just saying there's a possibility.
There absolutely is.
Prior to this week,
for a lot of things.
He's the RB8. He's in the top 12 right now. So I don't think it's absurd for him to land in the top 12. I think he'll probably the most realistic outcome here is he's going to land just outside the top 12. But
so top 15, kind of like I just said. But.
Sure. If you want to be technical.
Okay, guys, we're going to move over to the New Orleans side.
Real quick before we roll on, Simon.
Go ahead.
If anybody's holding on to Mike Davis, drop him. Like there's no reason. If he's still on your roster, just drop him. It's not happening. The only reason he had value earlier in the season, he was getting some catches, and he's not getting that anymore.
Can I ask the question actually too? It's for JL a little bit. James Robinson or Cordell Patterson?
Oh my God,
that's a good question.
Because you're
the highest.
I think that's like the line almost.
That's a good one.
I'm making a tough one. It's not easy on you, man.
James Robinson, I know he's injured, so you gotta. I don't know what he was prior to the injury, but RB13.
He's playing next week. Let's just
so he was RB13. Going into this week, PPR leagues. Oh God, I would probably. I think I would take. I don't know. I can't answer this question. I can't.
Here's what I
think on the line, JL. You have to answer this question.
I think the right answer is Patterson. I think I would take Robinson. I don't know if I have the guts to take that shot because Robinson is so safe. I feel like down the stretch as long as he's healthy. So I will take that what I view as an RB1 down the stretch. But I think there's a very real chance Patterson outscores him rest of the season.
With Ridley out, I'm going Patterson.
Doing it.
I'm going Patterson. In PPR formats, I will clarify too, because Patterson has lived off the receiving work. Compared to
JL, do you want to do some sort of bet rest of the season? From this point on?
No, I absolutely do not. Because I think these guys could finish exactly next to each other.
Let's do it.
That's true.
All right.
Also, quick update. The Kansas City Chiefs did just beat the Green Bay Packers. That game has just ended. Chiefs are the winners. We're going to move on to the New Orleans side of this ball. So as we know, Jameis Winston went out with an injury. And while a lot of us expected Taysom Hill to come in as the starter, Trevor Siemian was named the starter of this team. Taysom Hill must have gotten in trouble with Sean Payton or something, and he put him in timeout. So we will see what happens going forward. But my first question, and JL, I'll come to you for this one first. Trevor Siemian put up a 25 for 41, 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 fumble in this game. Is that enough to keep the starting job going into next week, or do you view a chance that Taysom Hill is named the starter?
I think there's absolutely a chance that Taysom Hill gets named the starter. I think he would have been the starter if he hadn't been coming off this pretty major injury, this head injury, brain injury that he suffered from during the Washington game earlier in the season. And on top of that, Trevor Siemian, beat the Bucs, which no one was really expecting. So I think that they wanted to roll with Trevor Siemian, and he did all right. But he did all right against a very weak Atlanta defense that most quarterbacks have just been absolutely demolishing all season. So I think it might be enough for him to get the starting job, but I think that's going to be dependent on Taysom Hill's health, and I think this next game is going to be a lot harder for Trevor Siemian.
Ryan in here saying that he thinks Trevor Siemian will keep the start. Jay, what do you think on this one? Do you think Trevor Siemian's going to keep the starting job?
Well, I really hate to agree with Ryan on anything, but I actually do agree with him on this. I think our good friend Jeff Bell made a really good point the other day. He sent out a tweet, said, what's the difference in Trevor Siemian now and Drew Brees last year? Like, obviously, Drew Brees is a lot better quarterback career-wise. But
mind-wise.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a noodle arm. I think that Trevor Siemian can do what he did for them last year. JL, the only thing I will say about Taysom Hill is if the health was such a concern, I don't think they would have played him this week at all.
He did play,
So, it was a concussion. If it was a concussion, right, that he had 2 weeks ago. So that's if it was a different injury, that might be the case. But with, such a concentration on brain injuries and stuff like that, if there was any concern, I don't think they would have played him at all. So I think Trevor Siemian did just enough to get another start. Do I think he's going to be the starter all year? No. But I do think he's at least going to have another start, at least one. We'll see how it goes next week.
I'm right there with you, Jay. I think Trevor Siemian will start next week, but I do not expect him to be the starter rest of the season. I think we see some Taysom Hill starts before this season is over. Sean Payton just loves that man too much. The second
Sean
he has
Payton
an
loves
excuse,
Sean Payton and thinking that he's the smartest guy in the entire NFL.
Or what if this is one of those things where he just
himself.
keeps telling Taysom, like, no, you're only the backup because Drew Brees is here. No, it's only because Jameis is here. I promise. If Jameis wasn't here, and now he's having to backtrack.
Look at the contract that we gave you. Like, obviously, I love you. It's fake, but
Guys, one other thing on the New Orleans side of this ball before we move on to our next game. Marquez Callaway had 6 targets, 3 receptions for 25 yards and a touchdown. A pretty good fantasy week from him if you started him, better than some of the other ones you have gotten in weeks past. Josh, with Siemian as the starter right now, do you think Marquez Callaway is a trustable fantasy option? Do you view him differently? Also, let me just throw in additional context. Michael Thomas is out the rest of the season now. We know that he will not be playing. Does that make you more interested in Marquez Callaway?
No, he got 25 yards. He had 3 catches for 25 yards. I'm not. I think Deontay Harris had a better game, getting 8 targets, 6 catches, and 52 yards. The touchdown obviously set Callaway ahead. Kenny Stills got, he got 2 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. That's just as good, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I don't trust any of these options. The only person I want to start on the Saints offense right now is Kamara.
And boy, do I want to start him.
Well, I got a question for you guys. If Odell Beckham signs there, are you interested in OBJ?
Yep.
He wouldn't be on the waiver wire.
I would stash him. Marquez Callaway's had 3 receptions in each of the last 3 games. This is the first time he scored more than 5 points.
Wait, I want to go back to Jay's question. And in jail, you said you would stash him. If OBJ's on the Saints, I will start him. As soon as he's in that lineup, I will start OBJ.
I have to disagree there. I definitely think he's a stash. I picked him up in my home league.
Definitely a stash. But starting, man, you
gotta
need
see
to,
OBJ was a good route runner in Cleveland. He just didn't quite fit with the system. Him and Baker didn't get along. It's not like he's lost that.
I'm not saying
successful routes, and I think he can find success in this offense.
Trevor Siemian.
I know, but I think it's less about Baker and more about the Cleveland offense. Cleveland's offense is predicated upon very precise routes. OBJ runs a little bit more freeform routes. He's not the guy who's going to be exactly where the route plans. Know what I mean? He sees what the field gives him and he gets open. The Cleveland offense is very precise, and I think it's because of the kind of quarterback Baker is. He's less good at this kind of improvisation. I think the Saints offense does a little bit more of that, and OBJ could find success here.
Allow me to clarify here. I'm not saying I wouldn't start him because the offense isn't or that OBJ has anything to do really with OBJ's talent. It's that he's a wide receiver who's going to a new team. He's learning a new system, a new playbook mid-season. And the other aspect is that there's no one else to really take away the defensive focus here on this team apart from Kamara. And so I really think that they can just focus on OBJ and shut him down, despite how good a route runner he is. So those two things are the real main things that are keeping me from starting him, or being like gung ho about starting him right away.
That is 100% fair. I don't disagree with you there. But I have a little bit more confidence in him as a player, I think, than maybe some others just from watching him. But I'm excited to see where he lands. Let's real quick predictions. Where do you think OBJ ends up? Josh?
The Saints.
JL?
I would have probably said the Raiders, but now that they signed Deshaun Jackson, I might say Saints.
Jay?
I think Dan Campbell is a madman, and he's going to use that number 1 overall waiver order, and I think he's going to wind up on the Lions.
You stole mine. I was going to say the Lions as well. I think they're just going to say, screw it, we'll eat the contract and sign him right there. So they have a number 1
the most
receiver.
Dan Campbell thing ever.
100%.
You think they're like they actually still have hope on the season?
I don't know.
Dan Campbell's the type of guy that doesn't care.
It just wouldn't matter. He's just like, screw it. I don't even want the first pick.
He wants to win.
There's hope every single week for the Lions. They don't need any long-term hope, just short-term hope.
Bad strategy.
Guys, we're going to move on to our next game now. The next game we're talking about is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Baltimore Ravens. And I know we got a couple people on here very excited to talk about this one. The Ravens pulled it out in overtime, 34-31. And before we start talking about this one, Maria, I agree. Maria wants to see OBJ in his prime again. Me too. And what's up, Bam? Welcome in. Glad to have you here for this Sunday night recap.
What up, Bam?
Shout out to Mike Gesicki, by the way. He had a OBJ kind of style catch. I don't know if you guys saw that one. That was sick, though. It was awesome. I digress. Nice. We are coming to this Vikings-Ravens game, and as a Ravens fan, I have had such an exciting season. I know we all have. This has been a roller coaster ride of emotions being a Ravens fan, but let's start with the Vikings side of the ball. The Vikings came into this game as 7-point underdogs, and they did cover the spread, but the Ravens did pull out the victory. Kirk Cousins, he had a good game, especially considering he only completed 17 passes. He had a fine fantasy game. Pretty much everyone on this offense performed more or less like you would expect. Now, Dalvin Cook, he did not have the best fantasy game because he didn't score a touchdown, but he got 110 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson, only 3 catches, but he did score a touchdown. So he was a great receiver. Adam Thielen did have a disappointing game. Only 2 catches for 7 yards. He did get the touchdown. Now, guys, I want to ask you, are you comfortable still with Adam Thielen in your lineup? I know I am personally. I want to come to Simon first with this one. Only 2 catches, but 7 targets, Simon. How do you feel about Adam Thielen going forward in fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, you said it in your question to me. Only 2 catches, but he had 7 targets. He's still a critical part of this offense, and there's a reason we call him Adam Touchdown Thielen. People say his touchdown rate isn't maintainable, but you know what? It has been for a couple seasons now. He's going to find the end zone again in future games. I have no issue plugging Adam Thielen in week in, week out. But just know if he doesn't get that touchdown, there's a good chance you're a little bit disappointed in his fantasy week. But as far as players go to bet on a touchdown for, Adam Thielen's a pretty good one to take that bet with.
Absolutely. I mean, he only got 6 yards, but again, he made his fantasy game because he at least got a touchdown. Jay, do you kind of feel more or less the same way as Simon does here?
Yeah, I think he hit the nail on the head. I was one that bought into the touchdown regression for Adam Thielen, and that was wrong. I definitely talking about a lot of mistakes I made this offseason, but Thielen was one of them. He's just somebody who I thought that, he wasn't going to have that type of production, and he's having a good season. Not necessarily a great game, but you have to like the underlying numbers. Like you said, 7 targets. Especially in a game where Kirk Cousins only completed 17 passes. I think he's a rock solid wide receiver too. Some people like, wide receiver 3, flex play, stuff like that. No, he's a perfect wide receiver 2, a safe play. If you have a high variance wide receiver 2, if somebody's selling low after this, I think he's a perfect target.
Hey JL, let me ask you real
Josh.
fast. You got those targets up? You guys
I
got
do,
those
I do.
target shares up?
Yeah,
Because Tyler Conklin, he's been getting a lot of targets for a tight end. Now, the problem is he only has one touchdown this year, and we know fantasy value for tight ends does come from touchdowns a lot of the time. But I love seeing these targets. 7 targets the last 2 weeks. He's been consistently targeted throughout the season. What's his target share look like for the Vikings?
So on the season, Tyler Conklin is third in this offense, 15.2% of the target share. In the last 3 games, he moves up to number 2, though, 23%. 23% of the target share. That's significant.
Absolutely. So I just want to throw his name out there because I think he's an option you can throw into your fantasy lineup every week with the landscape of tight ends. I'm not saying he's necessarily a top 8 guy even, but after the top 8 guys, it's a crapshoot. So Tyler Conklin, throw his name in there. You're able to start him every week just because of the targets.
So quick question, Dan Arnold or Tyler Conklin?
I'll go Conklin.
I'll go Conklin as well.
I would go Dan Arnold.
Darnold.
I think I'm going to split the room. I think I'd go Darnold as well.
For me, I feel like just based on the offense, Conklin has a better chance at finding his way into the end zone any given week. And for a tight end in that range, that's probably what I'm looking for is a touchdown. So
I think it's the same, but opposite, but also the same. It's the offense because I don't trust any of the wide receivers in Jacksonville as much as I love Visca. So I could see him having a more consistent role versus Conklin with Thielen, with Cook, with Jefferson. So
let me ask you guys some trivia here.
Trivia question time.
All right. Over the last 3 games, who has a higher target share in their offense, their respective offense? Tyler Conklin or Dan Arnold?
Conklin.
Dan Arnold.
Josh, what'd you say?
Conklin.
So 2 Conklins and an Arnold?
2 Conklins and an Arnold walking to a bar.
Conklin wins with 23% compared to Dan Arnold's 21.5%. Now let me ask you this.
Josh math if I ever heard it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Who has a higher target share in their respective offense in the last 3 games? Tyler Conklin or Kyle Pitts?
Ooh.
You just told us Kyle Pitts.
I told you
Conklin.
both. I told you all 3 of these players.
Conklin.
Oh, if I listened, I would know, but I don't listen to you very well.
Okay. What do you think, Jay?
What did you say, Kyle Pitts target?
I'm going to go Pitts.
Simon?
Oh, is this the reverse or the double reverse? I'll go Conklin.
It is Conklin.
Yes!
23% compared to Kyle Pitts' 21.9%.
I'll see you later. I'm out of here.
As soon as Jay went Pitts, I knew the answer had to be Conklin.
Thanks,
This was
Simon,
actually
I
a
love you
really
too.
good game. I think it gave us a lot of context. It shows that Conklin is super involved in this offense. And if he was scoring touchdowns, people would be like, he has to be on your fantasy, right? You have to be starting him every week.
The trend is very enticing.
Yeah.
Also, we got Daddy FanDuel in here. What's up?
Daddy
Welcome
FanDuel.
in. Glad to have you watching.
Absolutely. And
welcome.
On the Ravens side of the ball in this game, Lamar Jackson, he went off. I mean,
Good at football.
100.
He's very good at football. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he had 3 touchdowns thrown, and he rushed for 120 yards. He tied the record, I believe,
carries.
Yep,
for the most 100-yard rushing games by a quarterback.
10th time in his career, I believe.
I think it was 12.
Yeah, that's it.
Could be wrong. Devontae Freeman also had a great game. 13 carries, 79 yards. He caught 2 passes on 3 targets and had a touchdown himself. Le'Veon Bell was actually very involved later in the game, scoring a touchdown. So I just want to tell you guys, I don't necessarily trust Devontae Freeman myself, but I do think you can plug him in. I know people are out there struggling for running back. JL, what do you think? Do you feel okay plugging Devontae Freeman into your running back 2 slot?
If I absolutely have to, yes. Trying to pull up you know what? Looking at his last few games, I think he's a perfectly viable, running back 2 option.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, on the receiving end of things, Marquise Brown had a fantastic game. I love seeing he didn't score a touchdown. He still had 9 catches on 12 targets for 116 yards. I know a lot of people were expecting big things out of Devin Duvernay, and he looked good. I want to give a little bit of confidence there.
That catch was ridiculous.
Beautiful touchdown
catch. He only had 8 yards, all right, but he did have that touchdown. Jay, how do you feel about Devin Duvernay going forward?
Touchdown or bust. I think Bateman looked really good. Obviously, Marquise Brown is the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Still have Mark Andrews, so he's way down the line when it comes to targets in this offense. It's super deep leagues. If you need a flex play or something like that, you could do much worse. But he's not somebody that I'm excited to get in my lineup whatsoever.
I agree with you, Jay. I think Rashad Bateman's the number 2 wide receiver on that team, but still the 3rd receiving option behind Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown. But really nothing else stood out too much. I know Mark Andrews didn't have a great game, but he had 10 targets. He only had 6.9 points in a half-point PPR league, but you're starting Mark Andrews every week. You agree, Simon? Mark Andrews every week starter still?
Yeah, unless you have Travis Kelce as well. And even then, I would probably put Mark Andrews in my flex. There's very few rosters where you're not going to have Mark Andrews in your starting lineup. He's one of the few stud tight ends that you can plug in, week out.
Who has more targets in the last 3 games?
I'm not answering.
Who has more targets in the last 3 games? Devonta Freeman or Devin Duvernay?
Probably Devonta Freeman.
Simon?
I forgot to listen to the question.
Who has more targets in the last 3 games? Devonta Freeman or Devin Duvernay?
Or Tyler Conklin?
Devonta Freeman.
Jay?
Duvernay.
I'm sorry, Jay. It's Devonta Freeman's 8 to Devin Duvernay's 6.
That is so perfect.
Okay, everyone, take Jay to trivia night, and whatever he says, put the opposite down, and you are going to absolutely kill it. He's batting 0 today. We do have a question in here from the Chosen Rose. Last minute call, tie game. Opponent has Steelers defense, so he needs a tight end that's going to outscore the Steelers defense. Pat Freiermuth or Tyler Higbee?
Never Higbee.
I'm with Jay. I will start Pat Freiermuth here.
I'll go Higbee.
I think Higbee is the safer bet to get you what you need to beat the Steelers defense. Oh no.
Here's what I'm thinking. The Steelers defense is probably going to put up around 10 points, right? Like if we say about
they're probably
10.
projected for like 8, if I guess.
Okay, 8 points. I think of these 2 players, Tyler Higbee is more likely to outscore Pat Freiermuth, but Pat Freiermuth is more likely to score more than 8 fantasy points.
So Higbee has played 8 weeks, and he has in PPR. He only has 2 games where he scored. I mean, that one of them's an 8-point game, and 2 of them are 9-point games. So that's not saying a lot.
The touchdowns haven't been there for him.
I don't know. I love Pat Freiermuth this week. I think Higbee's just a safer option, and when we're talking about going against a defense, I think I lean Higbee.
Joey says Higbee.
Hater, so I just can't do it.
And then he says the Bears give up less than 7 points a game to tight end. So that is a great tidbit against the Pat Freiermuth side of this. JL, you said you were on the Higbee side?
I'm on the Higbee side, yep.
And Josh on the Higbee side, and Jay and I are on the Freiermuth side. So Chosen Rose, we are split right down the middle. Pick who's the most handsome and go with their answer. Or who you trust the most.
That doesn't work for us.
The smartest.
Oh, yeah, Higbee season, baby.
Josh is the sexy one, so.
Yeah.
Pick who you think is the saddest and then go with their answers. And so then you'll go with the Jay answer because he's missed every trivia question so far. Anything else on this game before we go on to the Las Vegas Raiders versus New York Giants?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Let's
do it. Las Vegas Raiders for New York Giants. And Jay, the Giants came out on top 23-16. I know that made you happy today.
It doesn't, though, because honestly, I'd rather let's not go there. Yeah, I was happy that they won the game, but I think I just don't want them to do enough to keep Gettleman. But that's another story for another day. Daniel Jones did not look good. Only 110 passing yards, who had 1 touchdown. Evan Ingram, 14 rushing yards, a fumble lost, and in return, the receivers didn't do well. Like I said, Evan Ingram caught a touchdown, but Galladay only had 2 catches. Tony only had 1 catch. Simon, I'll start with you here. Is there any pass catcher on the Giants that you're interested in for the rest of the season?
Kadarius Toney.
Even after this game, you're still pretty confident in him?
Yep. It is it's not a comfort thing. It's an upside thing in my eyes. I still like what we saw. If you've got room on your bench, I'm not picking up any of these players or starting them in like an excitement to start a Giants wide receiver, right? But if there's one wide receiver on this team that has upside to be a weekly starter, I think it's Kadarius Toney. I don't know what the likelihood of that is, but he has that upside that I don't see in some of these other receivers here. So I have interest in rostering him and seeing what he turns into.
The only thing that scares me is Jason Garrett. He's what's holding him back because
Oh,
they're not
100%.
even using him. It just blows my mind. He had a couple rushes, but other than that, JL, Josh, anybody, you agree with Simon on this? You like Tony, and that's about it?
I don't feel comfortable starting anyone, any pass catchers in this offense. But I do agree with Simon that I think Kadarius Toney should be on your bench and you should be waiting and seeing. And I think Kenny Golladay is worth having on your bench as well.
Yeah. If Golladay and Shepard are healthy, then I'm perfectly fine throwing them in your lineups. I think especially Shepard, we saw him getting tons of targets when he is healthy. But he hasn't been. So
Story of his career, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the entire offense was the running game at Devontae Booker, although I didn't like how much they spent to sign him in this offseason. It's been a pretty decent signing.
Get Saquon Barkley back in this lineup.
Exactly.
Wait.
He should be
21
back
rushes,
next week.
99 yards, 2 catches, 23 yards. So that's where I was going. I'm going to give you guys the tough question.
No.
Josh, we'll start with you and go down.
Yeah, all right.
Rest
all
of
right.
season, Saquon Barkley is a what running back?
Can I clarify?
If
Are you asking where he finishes or like rest of season?
Rest of season, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
rest of season.
Okay.
So from this point going forward, where does he kind of finish? Where does he fall in line?
I was with you, Simon.
So he's that Cordell Patterson line. I put him maybe right in line with Cordell Patterson, maybe slightly ahead.
I think it's fair.
What a crazy sentence. Can you imagine saying that at the beginning of the season?
People would be like, what are you
sentence.
freaking talking about, bro? You're insane.
I just want to say, as long as you have something to back it up, don't let anyone tell you your takes are stupid next offseason. Don't let them bully you. Just link them to Cordell Patterson's fantasy page and say, look at this.
Just say, Just leave it there. Don't even it. It's the
What's that?
But
JL?
I would take James Robinson ahead of Saquon Barkley.
Oh, bleh. I hate that.
All right,
I hate that.
fair
I hate that is a totally reasonable take now.
It really is.
I would probably agree with Josh. I would put him probably just inside the top 12, which is where I put Cordell Patterson.
All right, JL, Cordell Patterson or Barkley, rest of the season.
You did not want to answer that.
Barkley. It's Barkley.
It's close. It's close. It's crazy to say. It's crazy.
Simon.
I hate to be boring like these guys, but I think he's in that back end RB1 category, somewhere in like the 10 to 15 range as far as where he's going to be rest of season. And I'm with JL. Who would I take rest of season? Like if it was a trade offer straight up, it would be Saquon Barkley. But honestly, that's more because I would just feel so stupid if I took the Patterson side and Barkley ended up just being Barkley. You know what I mean? Like if Saquon comes back and he's Saquon and I just kept Patterson, I would be like, what the hell was I thinking? I would so much rather be wrong on the Patterson side than be wrong on the Saquon side. So that's just some ego risk mitigation, me saying I would take Barkley here.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And I agree with you. I think he's in that back end running back one. I still think he does have, if he's able to stay healthy, the way that, Booker's looked in his absence, he does have that top 5 potential still, but not necessarily where he's going to wind up. But looking at the Las Vegas side of things, everybody was hyping up Derek Carr, and he disappointed, although he did have almost 300 passing yards. He had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a fumble lost. Darren Waller, managers have to be excited because he did have a bounce back game.
Thank God.
7 catches. Simon, I thought of you when I saw this. 92 yards.
Targets, right?
Yep.
Yep.
7 catches, 11 targets, 92 yards. Hunter Renfrow, even though he got banged up, who JL did not like at all this offseason. He's still, even though he got banged up, just joking, JL. We know JL and Simon loved Hunter Renfrow. But he had 7 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. But the receiving game-wise, Bryan Edwards, everybody was hyped up on him with Ruggs not being on the team any longer. He had nothing. I had the same amount of catches as Bryan Edwards this week. So
he did have 4 more targets than you, but same amount of catches. You were more efficient.
I was going to say I was more efficient.
Yeah.
We had a comment earlier from Bradenton in here, just completely at the beginning of the show, before we talked about the Raiders at all, just came in here and said, Bryan Edwards, question mark. So I think you're right, Jay. People were expecting a lot more from him this week.
Brian, Dead words.
Oh,
I can't. That was on the spot. Guys.
Brian backwards.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. He's
Crying Edwards. Is that?
I had some hope for him coming into this week, but 4 targets, 0 catches. Get him off for fantasy.
Let's just call him Brian next week.
It is a tough matchup against the Ravens. I'll give him a little bit of an excuse there, but still.
The story for the Raiders was the running backs. I really liked the usage that Josh Jacobs got. 13 carries, 76 yards. He also had 4 catches for 19 yards, which is very nice to see for Josh Jacobs. Kenyon Drake got involved as well. Although he only had 4 carries, he did have 8 targets, 6 catches, 70 yards. So, Simon, we'll start with you and go up.
Thank you.
Are both running backs on the Raiders startable for the rest of the season?
Both running backs should be. I don't know if the Raiders are going to continue using Kenyon Drake this way, but I have been mad at every single NFL team that Kenyon Drake's ever been on for how they use him, because this is how you do it. He doesn't need that many carries. He is an excellent receiving back, and you saw it today. He gets work done when you give him targets. So hopefully the Raiders recognize that and they continue using him like this. I need another couple weeks of seeing Kenyon Drake's usage like this to trust him in a starting role. Josh Jacobs, he's startable in the running back landscape right now. If you've got him on your roster, he's probably a starting running back for you.
Yeah. Love Josh Jacobs. Do
I
not
was so
trust
hyped.
Drake at all, though.
I was hyped seeing him used this way today, though, because that's how they need to use him.
Drake's going to be involved in the passing game the rest of the season. I'm very confident about that, but he's not going to get 8 targets every game. So I would expect somewhere around 4 carries like he got today, and 4, 5, 6 targets, which makes him usable, but not someone you're excited about.
JL?
Yeah, I'm perfectly excited for Josh Jacobs. Same amount as I was before.
Yes, perfectly excited.
This has changed nothing for me.
Josh Jacobs got 4 catches himself, so I feel comfortable with him in my lineups.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Guys, we're going to move on to the Houston versus Miami game, the game that people were most excited about today, I'm pretty sure. It was the headlining matchup. The Dolphins came out on top 17-9 in this one. Tyrod Taylor's welcome back game.
Yeah, I know a lot of people had to start him. We had tons of questions this past week, leading into the week on should I start Tyrod Taylor, Jordan Love. If you did start Tyrod Taylor, it didn't go super well. He didn't do fantastic. He had 24 completions on 43 attempts, 240 yards, 3 interceptions. Not great, Bob. Not great.
Brandon Cook, at least hope that he did something with his feet a little bit more. Only 3 carries for 23 yards. So that's disappointing.
Yeah, not very good. Outside of that, it was similar to the Jaguars here. There really weren't many good fantasy performances this week on the Houston side of this ball. Brandon Cooks, he had 11.6 PPR fantasy points. He had 6 receptions on 13 targets for 56 yards. Josh, how are we feeling about Brandon Cooks at this point in the season? Where does he land in the grand scheme of things? Are you starting him every week? Is he an emergency start week to week?
I think he's a very good start. I'm not going to say fantastic or anything because of the limitations this offense has. But again, 13 targets, 6 catches, 56 yards. Any wide receiver that's getting 13 targets, you want in your lineup.
Do you think that Tyrod coming back and again hyper targeting Brandon Cooks like he was at the beginning of the season, is that what we can expect when Tyrod's in the lineup or playing?
Brandon Cooks is an explosive wide receiver. He's going to get more than 56 yards. Typically, when you give him 13 targets, he only had 6 catches, but he's going to have better weeks going forward. And I feel very comfortable having him in my fantasy lineups. He's not a wide receiver 1. He's probably not even wide receiver 2, but he's right on the borderline right there.
On the border between the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Simon, you made some noise
between
down there.
2 and 3. Between 2 and 3 is what I'm saying.
I think he's like, if you said name a wide receiver 2 for your fantasy team, I think Brandon Cooks is the first name that would come to mind to me. He's right in that range between like 18 and 20. Like, I feel like he's right in the middle of that range for me of like a wide receiver 2. And it's the volume. It's a bad offense, but he's the target hog here.
Do you want to play a game?
Better games. Let's play a game, Josh.
You want to play a game? Simon, would you rather have Brandon Cooks or T. Higgins the rest of the season?
That's a good one.
That's a really good one because they're both pretty highly targeted in their offenses.
Targeted.
Targeted.
New England.
I'm going T. Higgins.
I'll take T. Higgins as well.
Clean sweep.
I'll also take T. Higgins.
Clean sweep.
Super clean sweep.
Yep.
So you guys, sorry, got distracted by that trivia question.
sorry, I did. Yeah,
no,
I did.
Okay. Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 13 on the season, by the way, PPR.
Wow.
That was higher.
That's
than I thought.
surprising.
Yeah.
What?
So currently, so that's including this week's games that have been played.
He is the guy on the Texans. He is
pretty much the only guy. So Tyrod Taylor, are you guys are you guys comfortable starting him going forward as a QB option? Jay, what do you think?
Comfortable? No. I think he's a decent QB2 for Superflex League. He's not somebody that I'm interested in starting in QB1 leagues, but Superflex, I think he's a fine start.
What do you think, Simon?
Oh, I covered myself. Tim was just in here saying, Finn's next stop, World Stanley Bowl Super Championship. Yeah, I think that is the next stop after this win, Tim. Without a doubt, that's the next game they're going to play. Yeah, he's in Superflex leagues. You can plug Tyrod in, and maybe in I don't know how much better matchups get though. So this is
exactly that's the thing. You can talk about matchups, but this was it.
This is a QB2.
Miami doesn't have the worst defense.
You're right. It is not the worst defense.
It's not a great defense either, though.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So on the Miami side of this ball, Tua was ruled out prior to the game. I believe he did suit up, but he just in case because they needed a third QB, but he wasn't expected to play, and he didn't play. Jacoby Brissett filled in for him and put up an okay game. It wasn't anything to write home about. But Myles Gaskin, he showed up. He had 20 attempts, 34 yards, touchdown, as well as 6 receptions on 6 targets for 23 yards and 1 fumble. Simon, how do you feel about Myles Gaskin? I feel like we talk about him week after week, and it doesn't seem to be a straight trend. How are you feeling about Myles Gaskin rest of the season?
I might say there's not a trend, but it kind of looks like every other week. Every other week kind of looks like it.
He's going to be inconsistent rest of the season, and there's enough evidence for that thus far that he's going to have more games like this where he shows up and you're happy you started him, and he's going to have more duds where he's completely not a part of the Miami game plan for that week at all whatsoever. He's probably I don't even know where I would put him. An RB2, given the RB landscape, he's probably a top 24, top 25 kind of guy rest of season, but it's not going to come consistently. You're not going to know what to expect from him.
He's one of the biggest changes between a standard league and a PPR league. He really does thrive on the receptions, but he's heavily involved in the reception game. I like Myles Gaskin. I think you can feel okay with him in your fantasy lineup every week. He's not a top 20 option even, but he's close.
Do you guys why don't you guess where Myles Gaskin currently is through all the games played up until this point? What in PPR leagues, what kind of running back or what's his rank amongst
24?
He's had some big games.
24.
I'll say 18.
Simon
I was
says 18.
literally going to be my exact answer.
And so what's
17.
your guess?
I feel low now.
$1. I'm going to beat us.
Simon, you nailed 18.
See, I had the right answer, so that
leads me to believe you cheated. So anytime anyone's exactly right, I'm like, oh, you cheated.
Yeah, I definitely cheated. That's me. Big fat cheater.
Big fat cheater. So apart from Myles Gaskin, really, Jalen Waddle had a really good game. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 83 yards. I think we expect that with Devontae Parker being out. Second option there is Mac Hollins, who had 3 receptions on 6 targets, 22 yards and a touchdown. Josh, you have any interest in Mac Hollins while Devontae Parker's out?
No. The guys I want to start on the Miami offense: Myles Gaskin, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki at this point. Devontae Parker, maybe when he's finally gets healthy. Who knows when that's going to be? Will Fuller, maybe. Yeah. So neither one of those guys. So yeah, like what I said: Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle, Myles Gaskin. I feel comfortable with those guys.
Yep.
Okay, guys, we are going to move on to our next game. It is the Cleveland Browns versus the most confusing team in the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, right.
I have no idea what to make of this team. Some weeks they look like Super Bowl contenders, and then some weeks they come out here and it just looks like they can't get it going.
Who's more confusing, the Saints or the Bengals?
The Saints. Sorry. The Saints definitely are a little bit more confusing than the Bengals.
The Bengals, because like the Bengals have more consistent like players playing. Like the Saints, like they have it's just like
they've had a couple fluky wins, but outside of that, they're pretty consistent. You know what? You're right. I changed my answer to the Bengals. But guys, the first thing I wanted to bring up, and it's sitting here right at the top of their top scores, Nick Chubb is the man. He is good at football. Anybody who had concerns about him have none. He's back and he's getting the full workload. And what this means is I know there were some people who hoped that Dearness Johnson would maybe fill that Kareem Hunt role and be the 1-2 punch with Nick Chubb. It's not happening. Unless Nick Chubb goes down injured, Dearness Johnson is not startable in any fantasy format. Do any of you guys disagree? Do you see any value in Dearness Johnson?
Nope. You hit the nail on the head.
Nope.
That's it for Dearness Johnson on that side. Now, the receiving options for Cleveland. OBJ, as we know, is no longer with the Browns, so we were hoping what that would mean was a great game for Jarvis Landry. It all checks out, right? Jarvis Landry, nope. 3 receptions, 11 receiving yards for Landry. It was not a good game for him. Jay, I know you were bullish on Jarvis Landry coming off this news. Do you still have faith that he's going to have better games going forward, or how do you feel about Jarvis and getting this game result?
I still like Jarvis Landry long-term. I think he's a wide receiver too. Not necessarily the highest upside, but he should have a pretty safe floor, even though he did not have a great game this week. It was all Nick Chubb. It was a Nick Chubb game. He took over. I think Jarvis Landry is somebody who you can start confidently. I think going forward, he's going to have much better games.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. The Browns went up big in this one. They had a defensive touchdown in the first quarter. This was a perfect game script for Nick Chubb to just go crazy. I think the receivers will be more involved. But speaking of the receivers, there are other receiving options that got involved today, specifically Donovan Peoples-Jones. It was 3 targets, 2 receptions, but 86 yards and a touchdown. And guys, that is a DPJ stat line. Whenever he is fantasy relevant, it's going to look like that. He's going to have the long bomb touchdown, and that's what they want to use him for. So Josh, given the long bomb touchdown, these boomer bust kinds of players, do you have any interest in Donovan Peoples-Jones on your fantasy rosters rest of the season?
I really do not believe he's going to be a consistent producer for fantasy. Yes, he's going to have games like this, but they are going to be. He's one of the biggest boomer bust plays you can throw into your lineup. So is he a good DFS play? Sure, if you hit on him, it's going to go well. But I don't trust him. I don't.
JL?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how his usage changes now with OBJ gone. And in a game where they're not up by so much, right? Where it's possible, like none of the receiving options really got a ton of targets. And so I'm a little interested. It's more of like not necessarily interested. Like I'm confident that he'll get more usage, but I'm keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, on the Cincinnati side of this ball, Joe Burrow did not have a good game today. Turnovers, only 282 yards and no passing touchdowns. Josh, the Cleveland defense was back together today for the first time since week 3. The secondary was fully healthy. The defensive line was mostly healthy. They have their linebacker core. Do you think this was Joe Burrow going up against a good defense? Was this a bad game where he got down, was trying to do too much, or are you worried about him rest of the season?
I am not worried about Joe Burrow the rest of the season. I think it's a mixture of everything you just said. Yeah, the Cleveland Browns do have a good defense. They've kind of proven that all year. And yes, they got down early and Joe Burrow was trying to make things happen. That was very apparent to me, which led to not a lot of success through the air, especially for Jamar Chase, who had 13 targets still, 6 catches, 49 yards. He also had 2 carries. T. Higgins had a great game himself. I just think I think he was just trying to do too much, but going forward, I feel comfortable still having Joe Burrow in my lineup and T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. All those guys are great.
Fully agree with you there. All of those guys are pretty much every week starts in most fantasy lineups for me. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are being targeted too much in a fairly high-powered offense usually for you to put them on your bench. The other note I have from this game, though, is man, I love Tyler Boyd, but he is just the odd man out when the other options are healthy. He is an unbelievable slot receiver and in very specific game scripts going against teams that are weak against the slot receiver. You'll be able to start him. But outside of that, I think he's almost unstartable in fantasy when Chase and Higgins are healthy. Jay, how do you feel about Tyler Boyd?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's through Jamar Chase, through T. Higgins, and that's pretty much it. He's a decent flex play in games like you said, going up against teams that are weak against the slot receiver. But other than that, you can't start him with any sort of confidence.
Yeah, I'm right there. And Joe Mixon, plug him in every week. That dude's a stud. If you had the running backs from this game this week, you were very happy.
Did you hear that, Josh? Joe Mixon, the stud?
Yeah, let's go, Jay. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah, Joe Mixon. We're Joe Mixon boys.
That's right.
Guys, next, we are moving on to this Denver Broncos versus Dallas Cowboys game.
What the hell was this?
What happened? Cowboys came out 30-16, and that score is a lot closer than this game looked for most of it. What a weird game.
What was the spread, guys? How many point favorites for the Cowboys? JL, what do you think?
I would say 7 points.
Jay, what do you think?
6.5.
Simon?
11.
They were 10-point favorites going into this game. The Cowboys were 10-point favorites, and the Broncos beat up on the Cowboys. The Cowboys never stood a chance. If we're being honest, Teddy Bridgewater looked great. He looked great. No turnovers on his end. He had a rushing touchdown. He threw a passing touchdown. He didn't really have to do a ton because the running game was on fire itself. Melvin Gordon, 21 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown.
Who was that you said, Josh? Who was the name that
Melvin
you said?
Gordon.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to make a point there.
Jay, and I want to come to you here because you've been pumping on Melvin Gordon going back to the preseason, saying he's been a great running back his entire career and he's going to continue being the lead running back for the Broncos. Javonte Williams also had 17 carries, 111 yards. He wasn't involved in the passing game, but Jay, Melvin Gordon, is he just going to maintain this role going forward?
Yeah, I think he is a locked and loaded, rock solid RB2. I think he's the 1A to the Javonte Williams 1B in this offense. They're both going to get a lot of carries. And that was my whole thing this offseason. Everybody just completely wrote off Melvin Gordon like he was going to ride into the sunset. But I had a feeling that it was going to be a committee and Javonte Williams wasn't going to be able to take over backfield. And that's what it's been. And Melvin Gordon has got more touches. Javonte Williams has looked phenomenal. It was never about that. It was never me saying Javonte Williams isn't good. I do think if he's ever given this backfield to himself, I think he could be a fantasy stud. But they got too much money tied up into Melvin Gordon. He's produced when he's on the field. He's put up solid numbers. So I am comfortable starting Melvin Gordon every single week as a rock solid RB2.
Yes. And the receivers in this game, Tim Patrick actually had the best game out of all the receivers. Jerry Jeudy looked great, though. He got 6 catches, 8 targets, 69 yards. Courtland Sutton was disappointing yet again for the second week in a row now that Jerry Jeudy has been back. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but Tim Patrick seems to have a safer floor than Courtland Sutton in this offense for some reason to me. I am nervous about Courtland Sutton going forward. And JL, are you as nervous as me? I just don't even – I'm probably going to still start him next week, maybe as a flex play, but I'm super scared.
I am too. I think I mentioned this maybe last week on this stream. I can't remember. We streamed entirely too much, but it feels like we're potentially on this cliff for Courtland Sutton's value. That I feel like people are going to start getting sick of waiting before you could sort of rest on the injuries and say, okay, well, when he's healthy, he's going to be fantastic. He's got the talent, and I believe in the talent, but yeah. We have to start seeing some fantasy production or else, I think people are going to start giving up.
My only thing is 21 carries for Melvin Gordon, 17 carries for Javonte Williams. This was a very, very run-heavy game for the Denver Broncos. I am on the Jerry Jeudy side. Yeah, I am on the Jerry Jeudy side of this debate. I believe he is the 1A. I don't think we can write off Courtland Sutton rest of season. He's going to have fantasy success.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I believe it played out to say we're expecting Trayvon Diggs to really shadow Courtland Sutton, being that outside receiver type for Courtland Sutton. So I don't think that this game is indicative of that, but we've seen the production be down in previous games, which is there's concern for sure. I agree with you, rest of the season for sure. Like I think he's still going to have good games where he's not up against the best cornerback this season in the league.
Do we all want Jerry Jeudy as if we had to pick a wide receiver on our fantasy team on the Broncos, would it be Jerry Jeudy for you guys? It is for me.
It is for me.
No question.
I hate that it is for me because I've been on the Sutton side.
Okay.
I still think Sutton's going to have value, but
not that there needs to be sides, but
Yeah. Well, on the other side of the ball, it was a very disappointing game for pretty much the entire Dallas Cowboys offense outside Malik Turner. But I know everyone was starting him regardless, right?
Yeah,
right.
No,
but
I want to
Dak
see
Prescott,
those.
he was fine, but what do you want to see?
Those FanDuel lineups where someone threw Malik Turner in there, like they ran out of money. They were like, screw it, I'll just start Malik Turner.
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know if there's a ton to take away from this. I think that the Cowboys will get back on track going forward, going into next week. Ezekiel Elliott did get knocked out of the game, but he came back in. I think he's going to be fine going forward. We'll keep an eye on that. He does have a knee injury, it appears. But again, the running backs weren't able to get carries. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. Are you nervous about these options? We're still starting Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb going forward, right, Simon?
Yeah, you can't bench them. They're high-powered or they're high-level receivers, high-talent receivers on what is usually a pretty good offense or very good offense. So I'm starting them each and every week.
It's a tough matchup too. Broncos have a good defense, especially against wide receivers.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all I want to go over here. I just don't think we can take away a ton from the Cowboys offense. I think it's going to, like I said, get back on track going forward.
Okay, guys, we are moving into our 4 p.m. games here. At first, we've got the Chargers versus the Eagles in another close game. I know the line on this one at one point was at 1.5 points on the Charger side, and people thought that was insane. But you know what? It was a close game. The Chargers only won by 3 here, 27-24.
Yeah, so Justin Herbert had a great game. Really don't have to say much about him. He's pretty good at football. Austin Eckler was a bit of a disappointment this week, though. He had 59 rushing yards. He only had, what was it? He didn't have that many catches. Where was it? I lost my notes. 3 catches, 23 yards. So definitely a disappointing game where a lot of people thought he was in a smash spot. But Keenan Allen, who all of us have been saying Keenan Allen is a buy low. The number, he's getting targeted too much. This is too good of an offense. He had a very solid game, 12 catches, 104 yards. Mike Williams is he started off the season super hot. And 2 catches, 58 yards. So, JL, I know you are the resident Mike Williams fan. What is the honeymoon over with Mike Williams? Is he going to bounce back? Or what can we expect? Let me rephrase the question. What can we expect from Mike Williams the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly fallen back down to earth. On the season, his target share is 22.1%. In the last 3 games, 16.7%. And so he just hasn't been targeted as much. I don't know if this is a tough matchup type of thing. Like it's just he's been unfortunate with having tough matchups. I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning is for that, but I think we definitely have to temper our expectations a little bit. I think expecting him to be the wide receiver, top 5 wide receiver after a few games, is classic overreaction from the fantasy community. And it's most likely going to be somewhere in the middle. Mike Williams absolutely has the talent. He was getting the volume. And if we can start to see that volume increase again, then, my feelings for him, his fantasy finish will increase as well.
This looks a bit to me like they've shifted back to how he was used more in the past. You know what I mean? He was a high average depth of target kind of guy. He was not a high volume guy. He was getting these deep bombs. He's a big bodied receiver who can go up and make those kinds of catches. You watch that dude climb the ladder. There's no one in the NFL that can quite do it like he does. But early in the season, we saw them using him a little bit more all over the field, not just on these long passes. In the past couple of games, it seemed like a bit of a departure from what they were doing the first couple of weeks and some more familiarity with how we've seen them used in the past. So I'm curious to see what the reality is. Like JL said, it's probably somewhere in the middle. I don't assume he's going to see this rest of the season, but we've also seen Mike Williams for long stretches of time used like he was in this game today.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts did not have a great game. He only had 162 passing yards and a touchdown, which is, what you come to expect from him. But he only had 62 rushing yards on the ground. So it was not that great of a, he hasn't looked that good from a real football perspective. He did not have that great of a game from a fantasy perspective. Devonta Smith had a bounce back game, 5 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown. But the real story is the running game and how the Eagles are the bane of existence for all the Miles Sanders truthers out there, including myself. Miles Sanders goes down, and they're giving 17 attempts to Jordan Howard, 10 attempts to Boston Scott. Jordan Howard wound up with 71 yards and a touchdown. Boston Scott had 40 yards, and Gainwell got 2 rushes, and he got a touchdown. So it makes absolutely 0 sense. So I will ask you guys this. Is Miles Sanders a buy low? Are they actually going to use Miles Sanders the way that they should when he comes back from injury? And Simon, we'll start with you.
I don't know. Like nothing makes sense here. Like Kenny Gainwell was stealing touches from Miles Sanders whenever, like the starting running back, he was stealing touches from him. Miles Sanders goes down and like everyone's thinking like, what the hell are they going to do? Give 15 carries a game to Boston Scott? And that's exactly what they do. Kenneth Gainwell is getting less work without Miles Sanders in the lineup. This is backwards wacko running back world. I don't know exactly what to think of this here. Yeah, Miles Sanders is probably a buy low, but he's going to come back and Nick Sirianni's all of a sudden going to forget the success he had running the ball, and they're going to throw it 50 times a game with Jalen Hurts and just let Miles Sanders run it 4 times. I'm beyond frustrated with the running back situation here. But to answer your question, yeah, go trade for him.
You sound real confident there, and I agree with what you're saying.
Don't trade too much, but sure. I actually picked him up in a league. Someone dropped him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd pick him up first drop.
Oh, yeah.
Jay Wall says, I love the Eagles coaching staff, ... I think there's a hint of sarcasm in there from an Eagles fan.
No way.
JL?
No, I'm not interested in Miles Sanders anymore.
That's shocking. Because right before he went down, you were claiming him as a buy low, so you've definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they were using him. I was claiming they were buy low because they were using him in that way. You know, they were increasing his usage, and now that he's injured, and we're seeing them use other running backs,
Jordan Howard,
and they weren't using him at the beginning of the season. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and say, okay, I expect Sirianni to come in and all of a sudden start using Miles Sanders like he did before he got injured, because I just don't know. I don't know what is going into his mindset.
Jordan Howard didn't play a snap all season until last week. Got 12 carries last week and 17 carries the week before that. Miles Sanders hasn't gotten 17 carries all season. And he's got 15, 13, and 11, never above 10 after that.
Yeah. Buy low if you can, but I'm not spending. It's just too much risk. I don't have enough confidence.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
That's pretty much it for this game.
Okay, guys, we are going to move on to one more game here. Up next, we've got the Arizona Cardinals versus the San Francisco 49ers. Cardinals, without Kyler Murray, came out on top 31-17 in this one.
This game was wild. James Conner balled out. Ridiculous. I think he got 40-plus points in PPR format. Chase Edmonds got injured. He went out with an ankle injury. No real updates on that yet. Let me ask you guys this. Assuming Chase Edmonds comes back, would you rather have James Conner or Chase Edmonds rest of season? Josh, what do you think?
James
Conner. Yeah, James Conner has been earning the trust of the coaching staff more and more and more. He's their goal line back. Chase Edmonds is going to get more catches for sure. But yeah, I lean James Conner at this point.
Yeah. James Conner, what about you, Jay?
Yeah, I completely agree. Exactly what Josh said. He's getting the red zone work. He's shown that he can catch the ball too, you know, so even though Edmonds is going to likely get more catches when he's on the field, give me the guy who's getting the touchdowns.
Yeah, a lot of people probably thought Jonathan Taylor was going to be the top scoring running back in fantasy formats this week, but topped by James Conner.
We knew it.
Exactly what we all predicted.
Christian Kirk also had a pretty good game. DeAndre Hopkins was out this game.
To see what Van Jefferson does. Just you wait, JL.
Just you wait. If you don't know, which you don't unless you happen to be on our call during today.
Which what the hell were you doing in there?
I was why didn't you say anything? I was asking them who I should start, Christian Kirk or Van Jefferson, and everyone said Christian Kirk except for Simon, who believes in Van Jefferson. So we'll see. We'll see who wins.
It could go either way still.
Yeah, Christian Kirk, he had 6 receptions on 6 targets and 91 yards. He's currently the wide receiver 23 on the season. Josh, do you have interest in Christian Kirk rest of the season?
Do I have interest? Yeah, he probably he's a useful flex play. He's a little boom or bust. You really don't know. He can completely disappear for weeks at a time, but he's got a lot of upside, especially once Kyler Murray gets back in this offense. Yeah, you can play him any week and hope that he goes off.
What about you, Jay? How do you feel about Christian Kirk?
I like him, but when all the wide receivers are healthy, you can't trust him. I think Josh said it perfectly. He's a fine flex play, but even though DeAndre Hopkins' target share is down from what he's used to, he's the number one in this offense. AJ Green's got a pretty decent target share as well. They've got Rondale Moore. I think you're basically playing roulette with any of those three guys outside of DeAndre Hopkins. Kirk does seem to be the deep threat, which you're more likely to get a big play, a big long touchdown with him versus some of the other guys. So I think he's fine, but you can't trust him on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I think he's gotten a little bit more trustworthy the last few games. I think in the beginning of the season that was definitely the case, but I'm a little bit more confident now to throw him in versus beginning of the season where it felt like it was
AJ Green
nothing.
comes back.
Yeah, we'll see. I might adjust then, but yeah, I think so. Moving to the other side of this ball here, San Francisco, they played a game. We saw Elijah Mitchell get a lot more of the work in the receiving game. They did, despite JaMychal Hasty being active. Simon, does this change Elijah Mitchell's upside in your mind rest of the season?
If they want to use him in the receiving game, absolutely. I mean, throw this receiving line. I know it was a little bit disappointing today, 10.4 on FanDuel scoring, a little bit higher in PPR. You weren't thrilled. You were fine with it, but he's had some incredible rushing games and throw 5 receptions for 40-something yards on top of that. Of course, it increases his upside. Now, again, this was one game. We need to see if it's a trend, but it was very encouraging that their usual receiving options were active and healthy, and he was still getting this kind of receiving work. It ups his ceiling for sure.
I think it's probably because they were down in the game pretty much most of the game, and they needed to throw more. Yeah, he didn't get as many carries, but he was more involved in the passing game because he was on the field on first and second down like he's kind of been, and they were just passing more. So
yeah, five receptions on 5 targets for 43 yards. Hopefully that gives the coaching staff a little bit more confidence to use him in that way, which they just haven't. The other big story, or I guess there's 2 other big storylines in this game I want to hit on. Brandon Ayuk, comeback game. He had what was it? 6 receptions.
Don't call it a comeback.
6 receptions.
Been here the whole time.
He's been never left. 6 receptions on 8 targets and 89 yards and a touchdown.
And a beautiful fumble.
And a really goofy fumble. Jay, should people be picking Brandon Ayuk off the waiver wire if he's there in their leagues?
Yes, I don't think he should have ever been on the waiver wire. I definitely don't think you could have started him with any sort of confidence, but he showed too much last year that he can produce when, given the opportunity. And it's weird the way the season has gone for him. He was in the doghouse or whatever earlier in the year, but he's turned it on here recently. And I think that he's somebody that you can't necessarily still you can't trust by any means, but he's shown what he can do. This offense hasn't really found its identity. They haven't really been able to stay healthy. So I definitely think if he's out there, he's somebody you pick up in a good matchup. I think you can, or, if you need a bye week replacement, I think he's a solid flex play, wide receiver 3. If he gets going, he could have a really nice stretch down the rest of the season.
Simon, are you confident throwing Brandon Ayuk in your lineup, maybe your FanDuel lineup?
Nope. 0% confidence. That doesn't mean you can't do it, but I've seen enough from him this season in a complete disappearing act, a complete lack of involvement in this offense, that this game and his slight uptick in involvement over the past couple games is not enough to give me any sort of confidence to plug him in. Home run shot, sure. Think he's going to get a touchdown? Yeah, it could happen, but there is no confidence behind that.
That's fair. And then I know we're slowly out of time here. Josh, last thing, yes. George Kittle. Came back from injury strong, highest scoring tight end on the week so far in PPR formats. A lot of people were giving up on Kittle the last few weeks. Where can we expect George Kittle to finish rest of the season? Is he a top,
from this point going forward? He is a top 5, locked in top 5 tight end. He is an elite. He's a top 3 talent. It's just as long as he continues getting these targets, which he's seen when he's healthy. I love George Kittle. You don't even consider it. He's in your lineup going forward now for me.
Yeah, I'm with you completely, Josh. I think he could be top, maybe top tight end 1 on the season, rest of the season.
He could be.
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy. That dude plays with reckless abandon. So he's going to have to stay healthy. Him and Mike Williams, both of them, they play violent football. So it's always a question if they're going to stay healthy. Okay, guys, I think that is it for our Sunday night recap. Thank you everyone who tuned in and came and hang out with us this Sunday evening. Sunday night football has started, so we are going to get out of here. We're going to go watch it. You go enjoy that game. A quick reminder before we sign off, if you have not done so already, make sure you subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube. They are on YouTube at FanDuel, and go follow them on Twitch at FanDuel. You can find them on Twitter and on TikTok at FanDuel as well. Awesome content creators. It's not just us. You don't have to worry. There's some really great people on the FanDuel site putting out some really great
We know
content.
you were worried.
Yeah, we know you were super worried over here.
Rightfully so.
Also, Jay Wall in here trying to troll us. Van Jefferson, 75-yard TD. Nice try, Jay Wall. Can't trick me. That is going to be it for us today, guys, though. Until next week, we are out of here. Enjoy Sunday night. We'll see you later.
Woo!
Love you
Sunday night football.